well. Whether it's a blog, it's a wiki, a website, somebody across the hallway, down the road, whenever they talk about education, one thing that's coming up is people, whether they're involved in education or not, is how do we make education better? And trying to define what better means. One thing I want to do before we move forward is just point out two words on the slide over my shoulder. One, students. The core and the reason that we're doing what we're doing. And the second one is challenge. Not only challenging them, but challenging ourselves. So Andy and I are going to pose a couple challenges for you today. But before we can challenge you in the future, we have to take a little trip back to where we've been. I'm a firm believer in you don't know where you're going unless you know where you've been. So, first, we look at the agricultural era in education. A time when schools started to sprout up, students were expected to know basic literacies, but the impact today is still that our schedules tend to still kind of mirror that time. Then we get into the industrial age. More schools pop up. There's a focus on efficiency and effectiveness, specific skill sets based on the needs of the society at that time. We have factories, a lot of jobs where those specific skill sets are needed. Unfortunately, looking at a lot of today's classrooms, yeah, the pictures in color, the students look different, they have different clothes, but the environment, and even sometimes the purpose for how we're doing things, or the intentionality of how we're doing things, is still back in that era. So we've moved here, where the information age, where you have fingertip access to any content that you want, whether it's with technology, walking, again, down the road, calling somebody. You can get any information that you want. Okay, think about that. Is it more important to know something or to be able to do something with it once you know it? So, looking at these four beautiful children, in my opinion, I think about what do I want for them? They look really eager. In fact, two of them just started preschool. And I think this week was the first day of no crying at drop-off. But they're eager, they're excited, they talk about school, they say they love school. So how do we continue to embrace that? How do we continue to meet their needs? And also at the same time, think about what is society needing from us? Because when we look at the agricultural era, industrial era, and now, society has a specific need or an ask.
You do have beautiful kids, Ryan. This is a picture of my kids on their first day of school just a couple weeks ago. And on your left is my daughter. She's 7 years old, and she's going into second grade. And you could just tell from her smile. Yes, she's missing her 2 front teeth there. But she is excited to be going back to school after the summer. In fact, she very carefully planned out what outfit she was going to wear. This might have also happened in your home. She had to go through about 5 or 6 before she found the right one. So she is loving learning. Now, in comparison, next to her is my son. He's 10 years old, and he's going into 5th grade. And he looks like he just rolled out of bed. And maybe this isn't good parenting, but he's actually wearing the clothes that he slept in the night before. He is just not as excited about school as he once was. He's a great kid, but school isn't as engaging for him. He's counting down the minutes till he can come home and he can play Minecraft with his friends. He can build stuff and then he can blow it all up. Or last week he told me, "Mom, I want to learn French." So on his own, he found an app and downloaded onto his iPod Touch. He is engaged in his learning. And really, that's our challenge as educators, because what can happen outside of school is not reflected in what can happen inside of our schools. Now, the good news is I believe that there are technologies that we can integrate and implement in schools system-wide that can help engage our students and make them partners in their own learning. The first is cloud-based computing. Now, practically, from a teacher perspective, I love this because there's no more excuses. No more the dog ate my homework, or the printer's not working, or I don't have that software. But really what we need to ask ourselves is, how is this engaging students? And I look at cloud-based computing as engaging our students in 3 ways. Excuse me. The first is with collaboration. So tools like Google Docs allow a student to create a doc and then share it with their teacher. And as in the past, it may have been that the teacher was the only person who read that 5-paragraph essay or that research report. But with Google Docs, with one simple click of a button, a student can share their project or their paper with the entire world. So the audience and the purpose changes, and students can be more engaged. Students can also communicate. So oftentimes students come home and start their homework for the day, and they don't have a parent there to help them when they struggle or when they have questions. And with social media like Twitter and Facebook, students can jump online and they can ask each other questions, so they can help each other in their own learning. And the last way is kids can make connections. Oops, excuse me. In a recent study, there was a report that there's over 2.5 billion internet users around the globe. Now just think of that, 2.5 billion. So the possibilities that our kids can learn from 2.5 billion other people in the world, and they can teach 2.5 billion other people in the world. It's quite amazing when you think about it. Another technology that is coming into K-12 education is the increase in mobile devices, mainly because of cost. And it's really easy to get all transfixed on this brand new shiny device. So in the paper we hear about the iPads or whatever devices are coming into schools. But if you think about the amazing part is what that does for kids. It lowers the access and breaks down that barrier. I don't know about you, but as a teacher and then as a media specialist, this is basically what the timeline would be if I wanted to use technology with my students. Weeks in advance, I'd have to go down and schedule the computer lab. And then when that day came, I'd have to bring them down to the computer lab, and we may not even be ready for the technology that we wanted to use. But because technology was scarce, we went. And technology became an event. Instead, with mobile devices and the increase of them in schools, technology can become what it should be. Just one other tool that a kid can use when it makes sense. Teachers can also use mobile devices for assessment. So if I can easily use a Google form as a teacher to know where my students are progressing on a concept, then students also know how they are progressing. So there's no more, oh, I failed the quiz or I failed the test, because they know in advance what the expectations are for learning. The last technology that I think is going to help engage our students is online learning. We have a lot of information, like Ryan said, out there. So if we have a question, we Google it. If we want to know how to fix the kitchen faucet, we can go to YouTube and we can find a video on how to do that. Or as coming into schools, we have options for online learning, where we can learn and take a course from even a renowned college or university. As an elementary technology coordinator, I was fortunate to work with a group of teachers this past year on flipping their instruction. So they were providing content on YouTube for students to watch at home. And what we found was the feedback from students is that they loved it because it could differentiate for their learning style. So for example, a student, when they were watching the video, could hit pause and they could write down a question or take notes. Or they could rewind and they could watch a concept over and over again until they understood it. And this differentiation, this self-pacing that they could take control of, really led to some ownership in learning. And that is really what we want. None of these technologies that I've talked about are brand new, but it's looking at how as we as educators and as a system, how we can bring them into schools so that all of our students have this chance to be a partner in their education.
Now, thinking about our burning question, what is the purpose of education? I hit on this a little bit before, but there has been evidence that the purpose of education is based on what society needs. Okay. So let's look at what society needs. Does society need preview? Does society need people, students, that can fill these out? Yes, it is absolutely important to know basic skills. When I go buy something, I better know what 5 times 2 is when I'm buying a couple candy bars for all 4, and I'm no 5 kids, but I better know what that is, right? But also, when is the last time, think about your world, when is the last time you took a standardized test? I know in a lot of occupations, education, we take some tests for licensure, yes. But on an everyday basis, are we doing those types of things? Or does society really need us to be able to tell a story so other people can help understand, which everybody has been doing an excellent job today on? Tell a story to help people understand, to be able to work together, to collaborate, to play, to learn while playing and making mistakes, to create meaning for yourself, to help others build background knowledge because you're helping them create meaning. Those are the things in the workplace today that are needed, not necessarily if I can bubble in a sheet correctly. Now, whether your aspirations or a student's aspirations are a doctor or a teacher or somebody in the trades or a school bus driver or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Those 21st century skills, the ability to empathize with others to help get your point through and to help support them, those pieces are all part of what's going on today. Now, we've been saying a lot of different things that are kind of maybe opinion-based. They may be high level, just throwing them against the wall and see what sticks with some of you, okay? But we often get asked, well, what are some things we can do right away to start? Doesn't mean we're going to master or be able to understand every concept that goes through here, but what are a couple things that we can do to start moving towards helping students be prepared for the job place and, as the mayor said, the global economy, the global workforce?
So my first challenge for you is to be more like Homer Simpson. And I don't mean go eat more donuts. But what you realize about Homer is that he's not afraid to try new things, and he's not afraid to put himself and make himself vulnerable. James Joyce once said that mistakes are the portals of discovery. And really, our job as educators is changing. Instead of telling students what they need to know, our job is to help guide and facilitate them in exploring and discovering and asking those questions and even making mistakes along the way, so that our students can become a partner with you in their learning.
And my challenge to you is to hand over the key. Andy talked about it. We have a lot of very efficient, effective educators using flipped classroom, for example, for differentiation, for students to be self-directed, for them to maybe create a purpose for what they're doing, other than this is just what you have to do or watch. Okay? I would like to take it a step further and challenge you to flip the roles of the teacher and the student. Allow the students to create content. Allow students to curate content. Allow students to collaborate and share. And oh, by the way, use that in your lessons. Allow them to bring their artifacts and their learning into play. Because I will promise you, well, maybe I shouldn't promise you, but if I were a betting man, I would bet that if you do that, those standardized test scores will take care of themselves. Thank you.